When I entered Kasubi Tombs, I was struck by a few things. First, it was cool. Temperature-wise, I mean. But also in feeling. Second, it was silent. Except for the soft crunch of lemongrass beneath your feet, there was no sound. No machines, no people, because we were the only ones there, I thought. Just silence. Before stepping inside, we were told to remove our shoes, to lower our voices, to sit properly, and all of us did. You could feel it. The order, the reverence, the presence. It was as if the kings were still there. Inside, on the right hand of the room, an older woman sat quietly in the shadows, doing what I think was knitting, if I remember correctly. She greeted us with a whisper, and we whispered back. I then turned to my guide and asked, "Who is she?" "That," she said, "is one of the king's widows." I paused. Widows? Yes, even when the king dies, his wives remain. They live here to care for him, to serve him, and to stay. And just like that, my interest was piqued. In the Western world, inheritance usually means acquiring the property of the dead. This could be in the form of money, land, maybe even a family house. Most often, it's a parent passing on these things to their children. But in Buganda, inheritance went beyond the material. To inherit was to take on responsibility, to become the protector of the family, the steward of the land, the living voice of a lineage. You didn't just step into someone else's shoes, you stepped into their spirit. You became them. The heir became the deceased not metaphorically, but ritually. In a sense, a reincarnation. A man inheriting his father wasn't treated like a son, he was treated like the father reborn. And this wasn't unique to Buganda alone. Many cultures across the region practiced forms of ritual inheritance, but Buganda had something different. They included someone else in this ritual, a woman, who took on a role called the Lubuga. The Lubuga was selected from the same clan as the heir. She was his clan sister, and yet, during the ritual, she was also called his wife. Not in the way we usually understand it. This was a ritual wife, a symbolic partner. There were no marital relations, for that would have been taboo. Her role was not to be intimate. It was spiritual. For a man to truly inherit, to fully become, he needed balance. And that balance came from a woman of his own blood. Even women, when inheriting roles, had their own lubuga. Always female, always from the same clan, because it was never just about gender. It was about balance, continuity, ritual grounding. And when it came to the king, the Kabaka, this ritual was elevated to its highest form. His lubuga was always his half-sister, and during the final rite of his installation, they would stand together hand in hand on a mound of beaten earth, a symbol of the realm. This was no ordinary mound, it represented the kingdom itself, the world the king was about to rule. She was now his queen sister. Though she had no direct control over the king's rule, she was far from powerless. She was the second most powerful woman in the state, second only to the queen mother. Together they formed some form of triad, the Kabaka being at the top, the queen mother, and the queen sister. She had her own court, her own chiefs. She owned land. She received homage. Newly appointed officials also came to see her to pay their respects. She was not merely an accessory. She was a pillar of the throne. But when the lion lays down his shield, when the king dies, something strange happens. The sister's role transforms. The Lubuga becomes the Nalinya. Na, a title for respected woman, and Okulinya, to climb. She becomes she who climbs. From climbing the mound of earth in life to climbing the spiritual realm in death, this is when her true duties begin. She takes charge of the late Kabaka's palace, now transformed into his tomb. But this tomb is not a grave. It's a living home, a royal court in the afterlife, and the Nalinya is the keeper. Because the Kabaka is not truly dead. Like any wife, she tends the home, makes sure it's ready for visitors. When the Kabaka comes to consult his dead father, it is she who prepares the space. When ordinary people come to offer prayers, she ensures they do so with reverence. Because a king still lives here. Her connection to him is permanent. She stood beside him in life, and now she stands beside him in death. The Nalinya appears to be a witness, appears to be balance, and also to represent continuity. She's a woman who carries the flame of the line forward, not in blood, but in ritual presence. She lives at the tomb, not as a prisoner, but as a guardian, and she remains until the end. When someone dies, we mark the earth to remember them. A name on a stone, a date etched in time, a simple phrase whispered across generations. I was here. You see, legacy is essential to us as humans. Most of us will be remembered briefly, a small marker eventually worn away by time. But powerful rulers? They want more. They want to be remembered forever, not just in life, but in death. Pharaoh Khufu's pyramid is perhaps the grandest example of this desire, and in a similar way, Kasubi Tombs fulfills that role for Kabaka Mutesa I and the 3 other kings buried there. Its impressive scale and intricate design reflect the magnitude of the man who once called it his palace, or rather, whose spirit still does. But a structure alone cannot hold memory. A building, no matter how grand, becomes meaningless if no one remembers who it belonged to. Some societies write names in books, carve them into stone. But what about in non-literate societies like pre-colonial Buganda? How does a ruler preserve his memory? Answer? He writes it in his people. And the people who carried the memory most intimately were his wives. Marrying the Kabaka was never about love. It was about politics. The king could take any woman in the land, but most were recommended, selected by those seeking to grow their clan's influence, whether by offering a girl the king might grow fond of or one from a powerful clan. It was always a move toward political favor. Remember the ceiling of Kasubi Tombs? The concentric circles with the Kabaka at the center? Every clan, with few exceptions like the Lion clan, contributed women to him, each hoping to feel the heat of the sun and grow. A girl did not marry alone. Her entire clan rose with her. If she bore a prince or attained a role like the Kadulubale, the head wife who bore no children, she brought immense prestige. Through her, the clan gained protection, wealth, honor, and those bonds became a source of pride. But when the king's fire was extinguished, his wives did not leave. They remained in the palace, now a tomb. None could remarry because what belonged to the king belonged to him in life and death. Only the youngest might be reassigned to a new king. While the rest, at the tomb, they took on new roles, became caretakers of the premises under the supervision of the Nalinya. While the Nalinya handled the spiritual, the widows held the physical. A king was never alone, not in life and not in death. Their houses still remained around the palace, scattered around his tomb, still surrounding him. To outsiders, this might seem cruel. Widows bound for a life to a dead man. But if you look deeper, this was about more than mourning. It was about memory and legacy. When a widow died, her clan sent a replacement, not because she was replaceable as a person, but because the position was sacred. The memory had to endure. The role preserved the legacy of the king and the clan's proud place in his story. It was not just symbolic, it was a living recreation of a vanished world. Each reign marked an era, and every person around the king, whether wives, chiefs, servants, became the hours and minutes that gave the era shape. The Kabaka was the year, and his people, the days. In Buganda, a tomb was silent in sound, but it still echoed with footsteps, with whispers, with rituals, because memory needs bodies, and legacy needs those willing to carry the flame. So, when you visit Kasubi tombs and see the royal widows, whether past and present, know that they are more than women bound by custom. They are torches of living memory, passed down from generation to generation until the end. The royal widows of today still sweep the tombs. They lay lemongrass at the king's feet, weave mats to seat his guests, roast coffee beans, and pour banana wine in welcome. They perform the rituals, and just like when he lived, they carry their duties with honor. The widows of Kasubi are not just mourners, they are still wives, caretakers of memory, symbols of continuity. Though the king is gone, the tomb is very much still his home, and they, his family, are still with him. Their roles remain hereditary, chosen from their respective clans. Many have children of their own, and though life has changed with television, phones, and the rush of the outside world, they live in a world suspended in ritual, caught between modernity and memory. If you're wondering, do they feel forgotten? They'll tell you no, because they were never meant to be seen by everyone. They were meant to remember, and now you've seen them, you've heard. And perhaps you will remember them too. Thank you so much for listening. My name is David Iwanda, and this is Those Who Came Before Us. Peace.